I'm the Reverend Rachael Hayes, minister of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Amherst. I use she, her pronouns. Welcome to you, old friends and new, young and old, in the Zoom and in the sanctuary. You are an essential part of our celebration today. Whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are with us. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. Today we're talking about what happens when we share in the congregation. You may notice that I take my mask off to speak and then put it back on again to sing. Any of our worship leaders who unmask have taken a COVID test this morning. Our congregation has made the choice to prioritize the vulnerable rather than the comfortable with our masking policy. And it's part of how we take care of one another.
Good morning, my name is Andrew Coate. I serve as the Director of Religious Education here, and I use he, him pronouns. I call you to worship this morning with the words from Reverend Rachael Hayes. She's the senior minister at Foothills Unitarian Church of Fort Collins, Colorado. Count up the hours, the minutes, the moments, call them all gifts, and then keep calling until the praise comes like breath, and all we have left is gratitude. Time is too quick to give away without noticing. We need an accounting of abundance, a space for celebration that we have survived and keep surviving, that we are more than ourselves, that we are in the struggle, and we get to sing. Bring your sleepy eyes and your weary heart, your worried mind and your racing thoughts, but don't forget the joy. Brought or borrowed, caught in your chest, or ready to tumble from every word that comes from your tongue, thirsty for beauty and life, found in community, held in courage that is more than your own. Come, let us worship together.
I invite you to say the words for lighting the chalice with me. We light this flame to invite a world of peace, where we heal the wounds, where we share what we have with one another, where justice is another word for relationship, and we listen for what love has to say. I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our first hymn, Gathered Here.
Gather here in the mystery of the hour. Gather here in one strong body. Gather here in the struggle and the power. Spirit of life. Gather here in the mystery of the hour. Gather here in one strong body. Gather here in the struggle and the power.
This is a story called A Lamp in Every Corner. Many years ago, in the land of Transylvania, real place, in a mountain valley watered by quick rushing streams and shadowed by great forests of beech trees, there was a village of small wooden houses with dark shingled roofs. And the people in that village were of the Unitarian religion. But they didn't have a church of their own. Now, some of you might not live in Amherst, but you probably used a car to get here. But this is long before there were cars. This is when it was really hard to get in between places. It took effort and planning and a lot of time. And so they wanted their own church. There was a beautiful hillside, and they wanted a church to look down on the village like a mother looks down on her sleeping child. And so all of the people of the village, they built that church. They labored long and hard. Everyone had a different job. The stonemasons hammered sharp chisels to cut great blocks of gray stone. And then they set those stones into stout and sturdy walls. The glaziers made tiny glass panes and fitted them neatly into the windows. The foresters sawed tall beech trees into enormous beams, and they laid the trusses for the ceiling. And then they carved wood for the pair of wide opening doors. And they set them on strong pegs so the doors hung straight and square. They bought a bell from a faraway city and then hoisted it with ropes on pulleys to the top of the tower. The weavers wove fine cloths for the altar table, embroidered with flowers and edged with lace. The smiths hammered black iron into tall lampstands and thin bronze into shining oil lamps. And finally, the church was done. The painting of the church could begin. And so then the painters came, and they mixed bright colors, royal red and shimmering gold and brilliant blue. And everyone in the village, old and young, came to decorate their church. What would you paint on the walls of a church if we were decorating our church? Adar, what would you paint? A dragon? That would be awesome. Dots, some patterns, yeah. Maya, Sonia? Butterflies. Unicorns. This would be a pretty awesome church. And so they painted these designs on their church to say, this is our church. This is where we belong. They painted designs around the windows and different designs around the doors. And at the end of the day, when it was finished, when their church was finally done, all of the people of the village stood back to admire it and then to sing a song of happiness and praise. Their village had a church now, a church on the hillside looking down on the village like a mother looks on her sleeping child. "We will eat now," announced the elder of the village, because everyone was hungry after their long days of work. "And then later tonight, we will come back to pray." So you can go back to your families for now. And so the people of the village went down the hillside to their homes and to their suppers, except one little girl named Zora stayed with her father. They had brought their own bread and cheese, and they ate their food slowly, sitting on the hillside, admiring their new church. And after they had eaten, they went back inside, opening those carved wooden doors to go into the glorious painted sanctuary inside. "Oh, look, Father," Zora cried, running from picture to picture. "See how pretty the church is. She stepped into the center of the church and twirled around slowly. See how grand it is. Yes, it is, said her father, nodding with pride. But then Zora stopped. Father, we have not finished. What do you mean? He asked. There are these tall iron lampstands all along the walls, but we never bought any lamps. The church will be dark when the people come back tonight. Ah, no, little one, said her father. The light of the church comes from the people. You shall see. He rang the bell to call the people to worship, and then he took his daughter by the hand and led her back outside. They waited on the grassy hillside next to the beautiful church of strong gray stone. The sun had set behind the mountains and the night was coming on, yet in the growing darkness, tiny points of light, so you can light your candles and come forward if you have one, tiny points of light from many directions moved steadily up the hill. Each family is entrusted with a lamp, he explained. Each family lights its own way here. Where is our family's lamp? She asked. Your mother's carrying it. She'll be here soon. You can hold your candles or lay them along the steps. The many lights moved closer together, gathering into one moving stream, all headed the same way, growing larger and brighter all the time. Zora's mother arrived, bearing a burning oil lamp in her own hands. The father lifted Zora so she could set their family's lamp high in its tall iron stand all around the church. Other families were doing the same. Soon the church was ablaze with light in every corner, for all the people of the village had gathered to pray and sing. And all through the worship service, Zora watched the lights flicker and glow. She watched her family's lamp most of all. When the service was over, her father lifted her high, and she took the shining bronze lamp from the lampstand. Its curved sides were warm and smooth in her hands. Her mother carried the lamp home, with the flame lighting the way. The lamp flame lit their house when they returned home. Zora washed her face and got ready for bed by the light of the flame. Mother, Zora began as she climbed into bed and lay down. Yes, her mother asked, tucking the red woolen blanket around her shoulders. Father said the light of the church comes from the people. Yes, but also the people take their light from the church. Over on the table of the fireplace, the shiny lamp was still burning, and we have that light every day. Yes, indeed, said her mother. And even when not in church, even when the lamp is not lit, we carry that light of truth in our minds and that flame of love in our hearts to show us the way to be. That light will never go out. Never, asked Zora. Never, said her mother. And this bronze lamp will last many, many years. When you are grown, you will give that lamp to your children, and when they are grown, they will give it to their children. But there's only one lamp, said Zora. So make another and let the light grow. And someday tell your children to make more lamps too. And now good night, said her mother. And she kissed Zora once on the cheek, and once on the forehead, and once on the other cheek. And she closed her eyes and drifted into her dreams. And as the years passed, Zora grew, and that lamp did come into her care. She kept it polished and cleaned, and when the bell rang across the valley to call people to worship, she carried the lamp back and forth to that church on the hillside. And when the time came, she made more lamps and gave them to her own children, who made more lamps and gave them to theirs. And so it went on through the years, even until today. And as always, the light of truth and the flame of love from that Unitarian church on the hillside continued to grow and show them and us the way. Today in religious education, we were going to be talking about the Good Samaritan, but we've changed things up a little bit. Today we're going to be making some magic wands. A wand that maybe you can imagine waving and making anything happen, anything in the world. And with that, I'm going to invite the congregation to sing us out with the words up on the screen.
Go in beauty, peace be with you, till we meet in our hearts in the light. Go in beauty, peace be with you, till we meet in our hearts in the light.
There once was a small wooden church. That is, the building was small, but the congregation was growing. They needed more space for their people and their programs. They planned and raised money for a renovation that would help them meet the needs of their growing congregation. The new beams brought trouble with them, however. The wood was infested with a fungus that endangered the whole structure, the old construction along with the new. The minister reached out to the American Unitarian Association for help paying for the repairs to save the little church from the fungus, and the AUA replied, "We don't have any money for you, but would you like some priceless stained glass windows to put in your church that is a little less structurally sound every day?" You may have realized by now that I am not talking about a little church in Transylvania. I'm talking about Unity Church, which is what our congregation was called until 1962. I'm talking about the same wooden building where I stand and our in-person congregation sits. And the renovation is the one made in the 1920s, not the 2010s. But still, this is our own history. The windows were our beloved Tiffany Angel of the Lilies, and a triptych by Lafarge of Jesus with John and Paul, which now lives at Boston College. Let's get back to the 1920s. The American Unitarian Association had said, "How about these priceless windows?" And by coincidence or providence, these grand masterpieces actually fit into the humble wooden church. Somehow, with the arrival of the windows, the church raised enough money to pay for the repairs, the renovation, and the installation of new windows. The infected wood was replaced, and all was well. The money to cover the repairs had been here all along, but only when the windows joined the party did the money appear. It sounds like the generosity of the congregation was waiting for a moment, like the bit of grit that a pearl forms around. The resources were here, we just had to find them. It's like the old beloved story of stone soup, where a hungry stranger shows up on the town common, offering to make stone soup, puts a stone in a borrowed pot, and asks for water, begins to cook, begs an onion from this one, the end of a carrot from that one, a handful of beans here, half a potato there, until the whole town has added something, and there's enough food for everyone. Maybe you can think of another time you have seen this happen. I think of just 2 months ago when we didn't hold a fall fundraiser and the rental income hasn't bounced back as fast as we hoped after the pandemic. So never mind a fundraiser, we didn't have the energy to plan, attend, work. We sent out a letter asking for $20,000 to fund our congregation, and the money appeared. Your generosity was just waiting for the moment. Not everybody, but enough people gave what they could. Some by tens, some by hundreds, and a few by thousands of dollars. And we crossed our goal in about 2 months. This was amazing. And I am so grateful to serve in a generous congregation. This congregation is funded by the generosity of the people who have chosen to belong here. 3/4 of our annual budget comes from the money pledged by the congregation, and we take pride in that. Each year, we build the way for the next year together. As much as we love our building, the little wooden church that we inherited from Unity Church and maintained, renovated, and expanded through the decades, the congregation is not our building. The congregation is not even the individuals gathered in this room and this Zoom and finding us on YouTube later, or even the ones in the directory. The congregation is the way we build our relationships over and over, sharing Sunday mornings, listening in small groups, learning from one another in religious education, raking leaves together, sharing breakfast together, holding our history and traditions, being present to one another in the moment now, and building the future we hope to inhabit together. The seeds planted by traveling Universalist preachers became a church that was a unity of Universalist and Unitarian relationships nurtured through the decades, names lovingly inked in an old book, people who have said, by my own free will, I choose to be part of this congregation. So it was, and so it is, and so may it continue to be. The sermon reflects a lot of congregational business, more than usual. So if you're new to us, I hope you hear in today's service that we value clarity and transparency, that we're not afraid of talking about how we do things together. We don't only talk about a long ago past or what people should do outside of these walls. We know that how we do things among ourselves is directly related to how we are in the world, in our families, and in our own hearts. Every year about this time, we ask all of our members and committed friends to make a pledge to fund our congregation's next annual budget, which begins in July. If you have pledged in the past, we will send you a pre-filled form with your name, an address, and the amount you pledged last year for your reference. And if you're considering making a pledge for the first time, you get a blank slate. We ask you to pledge this year from the money that makes your life sweet. We don't want your rent or your mortgage money or the money you need for groceries or health care. We want the amount that feels good to commit to building our future together. When I was a new Unitarian Universalist, trying to figure out how much to pledge, especially as a person with a fluctuating income and then as a student. I found this pledge process difficult. Not the part where I wanted to support my home congregation as it supported me, but the part where I picked a number that represented my commitment. I tried to talk to people at my church about how much I should pledge, but they, suspecting correctly that I didn't have much to spare, didn't feel comfortable having that conversation with me. I don't want to leave you in that position. You may remember the old pledge charts that suggest a percentage of your income based on how invested you are here. If you find those helpful, they're still out there on the internet somewhere. But this year we're trying something new. Instead of a pledge chart telling you what percentage of your income you should pledge, we have household finance categories with suggested pledge ranges. Every category has dignity. Every pledge represents commitment and an intention to belong and participate in our congregation's future. If you have a paper form, it's right on the back, like this. And it's also up on the website. And if you're still not sure what amount is right for you to pledge, you can talk to me. Of all the people I tried to talk with about my pledge, I don't think I ever tried my minister. And I think she would have had that chat with me. And I think that because I know I would be happy to have it with you if you're unsure what to do, especially since it would give me the chance to ask you why your pledge matters to you and hear the story of your belonging. I know that times for some of you are hard. After 2 years of 8% inflation, I don't take any pledge for granted. And if you can give more money than you have before, this is a moment where we welcome that generosity. In the tightest and least predictable days of the pandemic, we cut our budget so radically that there's nothing left to cut. There's the overhead costs related to the building and the business expenses, which have gone up with inflation. And there's salaries and benefits. If we want to come back and discover what we can be in this new era, we'll need to fund it. From day to day, our congregation runs on love. I don't look up your donor history when you call for pastoral care. Our religious education classes are free for all ages, and small group ministries are too. We run on love, and it still takes money to do that. When you look at our budget, you see what we value. We value people. We value our relationships with one another. We value living wages in a location where life gets more expensive every year. We value preserving our inheritance from the past and investing in the congregation of the future. We value our connection with the Unitarian Universalist Association, which has sustained us through the pandemic in so many ways. And yes, their predecessor gave us windows that one time. We value imagination and hope and generosity in every form. We appreciate the statement of commitment you make with every pledge, whether you have $1,000 a month to share with us, or $5, or somewhere in between. Each pledge goes toward building our next year together. If things are so tight in your household that you can't pledge money this year, please return the form confirming your continued commitment and membership. While the board has a monetary goal of $180,000, and you'll hear more about that later, I have the goal that 100% of members will return their pledge form by the end of the month, no matter what amount it says. We want to know you are still invested, not just to drop in, but to belong. The congregation is what we build together, not a building or a set of people, but the relationships we enact, the future we prepare. This is the moment where generosity springs forth. So it was, and so it is, and so may it continue to be. I invite you to join in singing "For All That Is Our Life." The words are on the screen, and we forgot to put out hymnals because it's one of those days. Let's blame the time change.
Needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, with honor and with thanks, for all that is our for sorrow we must bear, for failures and the past, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come and praise and thanks, for all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise, for all life is a gift which we are called to use to build a common good and make our own days glad.
Hi, my name's Sue Kelly. I'm going to take off my mask. My name is Sue Kelly, and Rachel asked me to do a little pledge endorsement. Elliot and I both came from families of churchgoers. We wanted that same type of grounding in a spiritual community for our family and religious education for our children. We were also looking for like-minded friends, and that's what brought us to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Amherst about 20 years ago. Now we're in a different phase of our lives. Our children have launched into their own new lives, and our house is much quieter. I find I'm here at the UUSA to continue to explore my own spiritual beliefs and perspectives, and to stay connected to this community of people. The yearly pledge we make supports this community. That pledge also pays for staff that helps hold this community together. Just imagine for a moment what it would be like trying to keep this ship pointed in the right direction without them. A few years ago, I was part of the ministerial search committee that called Reverend Rachael to the USA. She got here just in time. When the pandemic shut everything down, Reverend Rachael creatively transitioned us to online services, bringing her fresh ministerial skills, her previous theater experience and life experience, to make these services as rich as possible in a very challenging situation. She has invigorated this community with her new ideas, which often means change, that I'm not always a fan of change, but I really appreciate that about her, and that's one of the things that keeps me here. My financial support to the UUSA, combined with all of yours, is essential. I continue to come here to feel grounded in the UU principles, to feel connected to something bigger than myself, to be with like-minded people. I continue to come here to have my assumptions challenged, to feel comforted and to feel helpful. There are so many needs in this world, it is difficult to decide what to support. Sometimes I donate to a cause for a while, and then it sort of goes by the wayside. This community, the Unitarian Universalist Society of Amherst, is in the family budget every year because it's so important to me and to us.
Stirrings of compassion blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, winds set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
And thank you all for showing up even on Daylight Savings Change Day. I really appreciate having human beings here. It's wonderful. I invite you to rise in body and spirit, place your hands over your heart, or reach out to someone near you to sing our closing song.
This day we come once more together, as winds of earth call forth our name. Thy kingdom all, through the strength of this circle, may we come rejoicing, determined, united in love again.
In all the things that we do together, we are this congregation. Carry the joy and love of this congregation to everyone you meet today. And maybe stay and have some soup. Go in peace.
The best things in life are free. You can keep them for the birds and bees. Now give me more. That's what I want. Just give me money.
What I want.
Just give me money.
What I want.
Just give me money.
What I want.
Just give me money.
What we want.
That's what I want. That's what I want. Just give me money.
What I want.
Just give me money.
What I want.
Just give me money.
What I want.
Just give me money. That's what I want. Oh yeah, that's what I want.